everything under the sun that has a ball and a shield. And I really don't deserve to be on this panel tonight. I'll tell you that. There's a lot of coaches on here. I'll tell you that I reference a lot of things from these other two bald guys, and as well as Blue, and a lot of these other guys that are starting to pop in. So I don't belong, but I'm flattered.
I am traditional bald. I'm trying this new COVID thing.
No, hey guys, this is gonna be awesome as always, fellas. If you guys have any questions, man, feel free to hit the chat, and then I'll communicate it with each coach as they go through. But Hannah's gonna kick it off. We're gonna start with just some culture stuff on the first time through, and then we'll circle back with some leadership talk. So, floor is yours, my man.
Appreciate you guys jumping on here. I've been lucky enough, unlucky enough, however you want to look at it. I've bounced around to a lot of schools. I always tell people I don't bounce around a lot because I don't think that. And then I start naming off all the dang schools I've been at. Like, man, maybe I do a little more than I thought. But when we first started talking about doing this roundtable, and Justin hit us up about this, and I talked about culture in my speech a little bit the other day, and I think it's huge. But I thought, for guys that are out there, I think the first thing you've got to evaluate when you go in is what I call the 3 whats of culture. And the first thing is, what is culture? What does that even mean? A lot of guys say, oh, we got to build the culture. And I think that gets thrown out way too much. It really bothers me. Somebody goes, oh yeah, we got to build our culture. We've got a good culture. We got to work on our culture. I'm going to take this new job. I got to change the culture. Well, what do you mean? What do you got? I'm not sure. So, I think that word has just become a little slang word just in the last few years, even though we've all been working on building that forever. I think it's a great word. First, you got to know is what is culture. And to me, culture is what you do every day, whatever your players are doing every day, what your staff's doing every day, what your community's doing every day, what your parents are doing every day. But it's what are they going to do every day? That's going to be your culture. And before you can do that, decide anything, you got to understand, is this something that everyone can do regardless of their ability? Because you can't have a culture that is impossible for somebody to reach because maybe they don't have enough money. Maybe they're too slow. Maybe they're too fat. Maybe they're whatever. So as you talk about culture, you got to make sure it's something that everyone can do. And then is that something you're doing every day? So the first one's what is culture? You got to get that in your head. Second one is, what do you want your culture to be? What do you want your culture to be? I think this has to be coach specific for your heart. Has to be what's near and dear to your heart, how you're going to coach your program, how you're going to run your program. And like I talked about in my talk the other day, that's not just the players. That's your staff. That's the administration. That's your parents. That's your community. That's everybody. So for you, what is super important that you believe in so hard that you're going to enforce it every day? And then the other thing it's got to be job and community specific. Everybody's culture may be a little different. It's all probably tied in somehow together, but every job I've had, the culture is just a little bit different of what I've got to have. So you may not know that your first day on the job. You may have to evaluate the situation. If you haven't got a chance to get in there and look at it, you may have to look at it for a little bit. So you just don't start spouting off words and saying this is going to be our culture, and it's not something you can truly reach. And then my third what is, what are you going to do to enforce it? Culture is more than just hanging up pretty signs. Culture is more than just saying, hey, we're the family. That's our culture. And you got a big sign hanging up, but you don't do anything like a family. You got to figure out what it is. So like our culture for here at Pawhuska, after I didn't do it right at first. I waited a couple months. If I'm ever going to take a head coaching job, my deal is I've got to be in place March 1st. If you can't hire me by March 1st, I'm not coming, because it takes that long for me to get summer pride and understand what our culture is going to have to be and how we're going to get there. So what are you going to do to enforce it? You have to, our culture here, I started to say is eat, dogs eat, effort, attitude, and toughness. That's the 3 things we're going to live by. We're going to preach it every day. You've got to make sure whatever you decide that culture is going to be, once you get an idea of what culture is, then you figure out what your culture needs to be at your particular location. Now you got to figure out how you're going to do it. How are you going to teach it? Because the first thing you got to do is you got to teach it to the kids. to your parents, to everybody else. And then they got to understand how it applies to everything you do. So I said ours is effort, attitude, and toughness. No matter what we're doing, if we're lifting weights, if we're running plays on the field, if we're sitting in the classroom, if we're at a community service project, it doesn't matter where we're at. I want to make sure we're giving the best effort we can give. I want to make sure we've got great attitudes, and I want to make sure we're being mentally tough and physically tough, but mentally is way more important, as my good friend Bill Williams always says. 2 types of toughness, only one matters, but the mental toughness. So those 3 things for us, that's our culture, and we want to make sure we enforce it every day, every second. Doesn't matter what they're doing. And now our kids are getting it. Our kids are understanding. Our parents are understanding. We had our banquet last night. It went awesome. Because of COVID, we limited the seating, but we put it on Facebook Live and had tons of people out there watching it. But the last thing I ended with them last night says, you guys all know our culture. We built this whole program in 3 years from going from 0-10 to 12-1 this year on the fact of effort, attitude, and toughness. Now we've got to amp it up a notch. So I challenged everybody on Facebook. I challenged every player sitting in the room, every parent sitting in the room. I expect to see better effort from them this year. I expect to see better attitude from this year. I expect them to be tougher this year. So again, I think it's just those 3 things. What is culture? What does your culture need to be? And then what are you going to do to make it happen?
Awesome, Coach. Really appreciate that. I like that. The 3 what's the culture. That's really good stuff. Who's next? Myron. Coach Blue, you're up.
Yeah, I love that, and it kind of plays off of, it's meant to be, that I was supposed to, I kind of did a random drawing on who was going to go next. And I think what I have to say about culture and really what I wanted to talk about today, is a great play off of that. Cause I think as head coaches, or coaches in general, we don't have an issue of, coming up with things like that, things that we want to have our pillars of the program. And, we make them acronyms and, we, start projecting out onto our players. But then we kind of get lost in the shuffle of our focus goes to, winning and winning on Fridays, winning on Saturdays. And, one of the things that, I, being a newer head coach and having great mentors and stealing and taking things from them, before I took this job, I really wanted to make sure that I did something that was going to be sustainable, that was going to help us have success, not, just 1 year and here and there, but overall, and I realized that, you got to make them care and you got to get them bought into it. You look at, the best players in the world, and I look at tackling, more specifically, right? You look at the best tacklers, some of you guys start thinking of people, Ray Lewis, you think of Luke Kuechly, you think of all these guys that are great tacklers when, tackling is probably, maybe 15, 20% skill. And the rest of that is just want to and you have to do it. And this, all those guys are just bought in and they just care about it. And they end up being the best players for you. And so when I kind of started thinking about, and we actually been, kind of bouncing around different themes, every year I kind of come up with a new theme, to kind of go around that year, but it all centers about making the boys care about what they're doing. And it's really easy. It's like easy to say, but it's in, all right, so coach, like, how do you do that? How do you make a kid is focused on getting a college scholarship to go play? How do you make them care about your program? How do you make the kid that just came out because their boys came out and they wanted to be a part of it? How do you make them care about the things that they're doing? And it's up to us. We are facilitators of culture. The players are going to make it, develop it. They're going to make it come to fruition. We're the facilitators of that. And one thing I always say, focus on the small things, right? Make them important. And again, people talk about, you see it on Twitter all the time. You got to love the process, and you got guys that are grinding. And we celebrate, when they score a touchdown, but are we celebrating, the kid that's 80 pounds that put up more weight than he thought he ever could? And are we making that seem like it's a touchdown, making them care about things like that? So we do that in our program, and we focus on, obviously, the classroom, we focus on the weight room, and we focus on personal achievements, and those are the 3 things that I focus on as a head coach to make sure that we're acknowledging and making sure that we're putting that on the same pedestal as we're putting you scoring a touchdown, you having 20 tackles in a game. That's celebrated just the same. So, we look at, the classroom. I do, and I know a lot of you guys see me on social media. I'm real big on that. I really think that kids see themselves on a social media post and it's not a, a stud of ours, it's just a kid that got a 4.0, and probably never played for us. He's bought in, he cares, So we really focus on those things, minor things in the weight room, personal achievements. One of, I think the biggest thing that we did as a program is looking at our managers and the things that they do and the people around our program that are having success and showing the boys that we care about those types of deals. I had a manager last year, she's graduated. She was our manager for 2 years. She was great, came to film on Saturdays, did absolutely everything. And we always promote, our kids signing and going to go play college ball. Well, she decided that she wanted to go in the military. She was going to join the Army. So I did a post just like they would have got a post, the post that she committed to the Army. We made a big announcement here. Our kids were going nuts, going crazy over it. And it kind of just felt that like you got kids that care about all the little details that are happening in the program. Like I said, if you can kind of develop those things, they start caring about the details. We don't talk about winning. We just talk about winning the process. And if you do those things really successfully, you're going to get wins on Fridays and Saturdays, and then the focus refocuses back on how they're going to continue to focus on those little details and continue to have success down the road. So that's my spiel as far as how do you make sure that the culture you're trying to create, you're doing on a daily basis, and it's focusing on those small little things and celebrating the small victories.
That's great stuff, Coach. Really great stuff. And people say it all the time, but you really gotta do it. And focusing on those small things, the details, little thing. I love what you did with that manager, stuff like that to make everybody from the top to the bottom feel important is tremendous. So really good stuff. Coach Williams.
Can you hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Y'all ready to go?
You know it.
I don't know if I'm ready for this. I don't know if I'm ready for this one.
We're all a little nervous.
Where's the seatbelt? I'm looking for my seatbelt.
Hey, shut me down if you need to shut me down, because I got a little. It ain't nothing I got to read. It's in my soul, man.
I heard that, brother. I heard that.
I love it, man. I love this game more than anything but my family. That's my football family too. Man, I believe culture is simply what the definition says. And if you look up culture in any dictionary, you'll find a lot of definitions. And I found a lot of them I liked, and I kind of put it together to what it means to the game of football. And first of all, I want to say this. The culture has an end product. There's an end product of culture. There's an end product of the culture we have at USA Football, the same as there's an end product of any high school, college, even Little League football program, because make no bones about it, Little League football programs have great cultures too. There's no doubt about that. No doubt about that. But there's an end product. And what is the end product is that your culture has to turn out good men. We're in a results-oriented business. We have to win or we're going to be packing our bags. But at the end of the day, we're here to turn out good men. And I said this a couple weeks ago. If you turn out good men, you ain't got to worry about your football games. They'll take care of themselves. You just keep turning out good men. So a culture is simply shared attitudes, values, and goals. I have worked with and for Matt Hennessy. Every time we've been together, our kids knew that we shared the same attitudes, values, and goals. And what is an attitude? It's how you think, how you act, and how you feel. When you turn up at the field house, there's an expectation of the way we're supposed to think, the way we're supposed to act, and the way we're supposed to feel. And a great coaching a saying in there is a fake it till you make it. If you're having a bad day in a great culture, I promise you, when a great culture is structured right, you won't even know you've got a problem until after practice. I promise. Because a great culture is a machine, and the machine runs from the attitude, the values, and the goals. And for me, I think it's the most important thing for your kids to know what you're doing in your culture. I learned this from the Marine Corps. A great leader is transparent. Everybody knows what's going on. Everybody knows how it's supposed to be done. Everybody knows what's going on. So values are expected standards and behaviors of an organization. So what is culture? It's shared attitudes and values. What is the value? Expected standards. There's standards. There's things that we live by. Will kids mess up? Will adults mess up? And black eye on the culture? Absolutely. Because they didn't live up to the standards and behaviors of the culture. And you can tell real fast when a person messes up in a great culture. Like, say there's a school down the road where they always have problems, no culture, no foundation to build their culture on. It ain't alarming when people get in trouble over there, but let somebody get in trouble at Pawhuska. It's a travesty. The whole town knows, the whole state knows, because there's a standard that they live by. And when their kids get in trouble, it's not expected. So it's news. You have to have standards, and those come from your values. So goals are goals, and the focus and all a goal is simply this: the focus of which your effort is directed. The focus of which your effort is directed. So if it's our goal, it's the focus of which all of our effort is directed. And that's all culture is. It's attitudes, values, and goals. That's all it is. And the end product of the culture, before we start really talking about what I'm going to piggyback a little bit off Coach Hennessy, the end product is we turn out good men. And that's the end product, and that should be the goal. I don't know if football coaches that build great cultures, or I'm sorry, I don't know if all football coaches think about the end product. I do. I think of the end product, just like the end product of USA football. Say, I'm in that culture. I'm a part of that culture. I was there when Ingram came in, and he established a culture. So if I went on to greener pastures or to do something else, I would take a part of that culture with me, and I would make wherever I landed better. When someone leaves your program, they should be able to make the world a better place just because of the culture, the shared values, attitudes, and beliefs. So here's what I do. You know, when I was at Pawhuska, it was we dogs eat, man. Dogs eat. We lived and died, and we thrived off of it. Hey, the worst days whenever you're walking into that field house and your head's hanging down, and it's the third round, and Coach Heno's a Hitler. I mean, this guy, nobody works like this dude. We're at 5:30 showing up for 6 o'clock film, and he's in there just getting off the daggum elliptical, and you're having a bad day, and you walk by somebody, stick that fist up, dogs eat. That was our platform. That was our foundation. That when he went in there, that's how he built it, and he brought me in to be a part of it, and it was a great experience. The principles I build culture on personally is to produce that end product when they leave the program. So everything with me starts with truth. Our kids know that we tell the truth no matter what. We communicate with the truth. And I say that because if I lie to you, you won't trust me. And if you don't trust me, we don't have a relationship that's solid. It's not on solid ground, because hey, yeah, he told me that last week. Someone wasn't right about that. So if you don't have truth, if you don't start and build that house, like we talked about when I did the first culture talk, where's your foundation? What are you building it on? And Heno's been fortunate enough to be at a lot of great big he was the DC at Jinx during that run with Calmus and them guys, and he's been a part of some big time cultures, and I have too in Texas. But at the end of the day, it all starts with the truth and building a foundation, man. And it's not all these posters and goals and manuals on the walls. It's what your kids know about being a Hartshorn Miner or being a Pawhuska a Husky. It's what they know about it. Because if they don't know what you're trying to accomplish, you ain't accomplishing it. So everything starts with the truth. If there's no truth in your program, nobody will trust anybody. If you got this faction over there, you know they're little sneaks, little liars. It starts with truth. Everybody tells the truth. Truth. If you have truth, you have trust. And if everybody trusts each other, you have a relationship. And if you have a relationship, you have a family. And if you have a family, you have a culture. And I believe that with every cell in my body. When I walk in that locker room, I got to be able to trust those dudes. We've been talking about this for years. The old analogy of, hey, what about that guy beside you? What about that guy beside you? You got his back? So it's all about bailing your brother out. It's about truth, trust, and in a relationship. If you walk into that locker room and you know that Jimbo over there, his mom's worried about how many times he's going to carry the ball, how many times he's going to catch a pass, how many reps he's going to get on defense or special teams. If it's all about that kid, that's not truth. Everybody has to be on the same page. We have to be able to trust each other and care about the right things. Truth, trust, relationship. I think it all starts there for me, because that's what they're going to take into the real world. You're going to send an honest man out into the real world that can teach other people how to be honest, because you taught him how to be honest. And the next one's their character. And character, like Heno said, is another word we throw around. We throw character around like a frisbee. What are you trying to do with your character? I'd like to tell. I see it, and I shouldn't be like this, but I've seen a lot of good clinic speeches, and I've seen some guys get up there and talk about character. And it's just a word that's thrown around. What are you trying to teach your kids about character? Like truth, character, mental toughness is my foundation. I just told you about truth. Here's character. Our character that we teach, our platform, is that here's the 3 parts of our character. Be honest. Tell the truth. You already got one of them. It's truth. The next one is to respect yourself and others. To respect yourself and others. I'm going to throw you guys a nugget here. I'm going to teach you. I'm going to teach you something. I was fortunate enough to have taught to me. And Justin, shut me down anytime you got to shut me down. But when you walk into a place and you look around that locker room at all them kids from Little League to your varsity football program, okay? You have to understand that a human being cannot outperform his self-image. Basically, he cannot perform in a manner which is inconsistent with the way he sees himself. I'm throwing that at you. An athlete, a human being, cannot perform in a manner which is inconsistent with the way they see themselves. If they don't see themselves as a champion, they'll never outperform their self-image. If they don't see themselves winning the state championship, they'll never outperform their self-image if they don't think they deserve it. And that's what you do when you build culture. You build character. You build it by teaching them to tell the truth. You have to teach kids to be honest. You have to teach kids to respect themselves and others. And that's a whole nother clinic talk, because like I just said, he'll never outperform his self-image. You're going to have dudes in there. What's the definition of a coach? Does anybody know here? I'm going to tell you. The definition of a coach is a person that can get a kid to the next level who can't make it alone. We're the adults. They're the kids. They can't make it alone. So you better be ready, if you're a head football coach, a real deal dude, to teach kids about self-image and how to like themselves. And like I said, that's a whole nother lesson. But the dudes do it. They have to, because they got to grow that flower. The end product's a good man. So in our character, we believe in our characters. Be honest, respect yourself and others, and be dependable. Be dependable. Can I count on you? Can I count on you? Can you count on me? In a football game, I heard Bill Belichick say this the other day. He said, in a football game, I'm going to make 85% of the time, I'm going to call the right play against the defense that I see. 15% of the time, I'm going to call a bad play to the defense that I'm looking at. 15% of it's on you as players to fix him. You know what I'm saying? So being dependable is something that you can teach your kids every day that will go over onto the field, that will carry over into their life. And that to me is teaching them to be honest, teaching them to respect themselves and others, and teaching them to be dependable. Can I count on you? Are you sending a kid out into the real world that nobody can count on? The machine of high school football, the machine that it is. And I love it. I think it's one of the last things that we have, one of the last tools we have in America to build good men. The machine that is high school football should be turning out men that tell the truth. They're honest they're honest. They respect themselves and others. And they're dependable. People can count on them. The world can count on them. Their boss can count on them. Their mom and dad can count on them. Their friends can count on them. That's our foundation that we build it on. And the last one, truth, character, is mental toughness. And mental toughness to me is the most important part of culture. A rite of passage. A rite of passage. In your program somewhere, there has to be a rite of passage. They have to earn the right to be a dog. They have to earn the right to be a minor. They have to earn the right to be whatever you are. They have to earn that right. It's not a privilege. It's not a right. It's a privilege. It's a privilege, and they got to earn that privilege through a rite of passage somehow. And that's where mental toughness is built. Because there's another one, mental toughness. I'll bet you any amount of money, if somebody's seen what we do in off season, they would be in shock of how we build mental toughness. And it has to be done. And I've seen a lot of dudes do it that way. But make no bones about it. When you build mental toughness, you have to set it up to where there's a rite of passage. I'll tell you how we build our rite of passage is simply this. Am I going too long, Justin? Do I need to move?
Hey, nah, keep
good?
rocking, man. Hey, I'm good. Keep rocking.
Our rite of passage is this. When them kids come in, we have a test, a standard of test. Say we're Razorbacks, okay? Well, Razorbacks the highest level. We're going to set physical standards up for them young men. And once they come in, if they can't run a mile, I'll just give you a little brief on it. If they can't run a mile in under 10 minutes and do 20 push-ups, they automatically, no matter what they test on the bench or any other test, they are automatically what we consider a prospect, just like gangland. They are a prospect. If you can't run a mile in under 10 minutes, you are a liability on a football field. And they're a prospect, and they'll wear a plain white shirt that just says prospect on the back. The next level would be the medium level. So if they get their standards, physical standards there, then they get a shirt that says they're committed. They're committed to trying to become a Razorback. The highest level's a Razorback. When they become a Razorback in the off season, they get to move out of the junior high locker room into the varsity locker room. Now, you're going to have dudes in your program that are standing there thinking they're a big dog. They can whip everybody's tail in town. They're good athletes, but they ain't your grinders, and you're not very committed. But when you put this into your culture, this rite of passage, that you got to do A, B, C to become a Razorback. You got to do A, B, C to move out of that junior high locker room into that varsity locker room. Once they see that they're standing on that line with a white shirt on, I'll promise you, your culture will start changing real fast, because he don't want no Jimmy John over there thinking that he's the big dog, because he knows he's got more in him, and you'll get that more in him out of him when you develop a program that sets up a rite of passage for these kids. We're not just going to give it to you. You're not just going to become mentally tough by doing what you were doing or being halfway. We're going to set it up to where that red shirt shows us who the big dogs are, the real big dogs, the ones that are dependable, the ones that have put the work in and have met the standards. And then we put them through what we call finisher every day, and that's the rite of passage. In our off season, we're going to do 3 exercises at the end of a brutal day that goes 20-1 up downs, 20-1, 20-1 toe raises, 20-1 Superman push-ups. Okay, so 20 of everything, 19 of everything. They cannot physically do it. It is impossible to make it through it. But the rite of passage is the greatest gift you can ever give a kid or a culture or a team is shared suffering. Not a stronger bond can ever be built between humans than shared suffering. When they suffer together, when they bleed together, when they grind together, when they go through hell on earth together, that's the rite of passage. That's where the culture is built. That's where the championship comes from. That's where the team comes from. We were in there going through hell together. Nobody could get out and nobody would run because they didn't want to be the first guy. Everybody's seen the Junction Boys. It ain't that extreme, but it's as close as we can get. That's truth, character, mental toughness. And I believe those things, that foundation gives us the opportunity to send good men out in the world from the machine of high school football. I'm
Awesome.
good.
Awesome.
Whoever's next.
Awesome. Awesome. Love when you get on that roll, man. AI, you up? So we'll go back to back with you. Culture and leadership.
Okay. Kind of a tough act to follow. Shit.
Well, he gets on a roll, man. He's on fire.
Yeah. Like, fuck, where do I start? Right. You know, I agree with all 3 of these guys in a lot of ways. You know, what I do is really different in a lot of ways from what these guys do, but then very similar at the same time. You know, and I do believe that the word culture is like the new buzzword, right? It's like you know, like all of us are in our more seasoned years of age. I like to say a little bit. We all remember when T.O. got a high ankle sprain, right? A high ankle sprain was like the cool injury to have, right? It was the same thing that was thrown out after a while. Oh, he's got a high ankle. He's got a high ankle, right? Same thing now. You hear about everybody, oh, it's culture. It's culture. Culture's a problem, you know? I'll go through some culture stuff first, and then I'll take a quick minute break, and then I'll get into leadership, because I think some of it's the same. Some of it, there's a crossover. There's some connections to it. And culture is something interesting. You know, when COVID first started, everybody, you know, March 13th, the world changed. And it changed in a lot of ways. And everybody went home and shut the doors and didn't go out, right? And the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, people started freaking out, right? And I had a good friend of mine actually call me and just to say hi and check in. And he asked me, what is culture? Just out of the blue, we were bullshitting on the phone, you know, like coaches do. You call your buddy, you know, Bill probably calls Henna once a week, just like I do, and probably says, hey, buddy, what's going on? And it just comes up, the word, hey, man, what is culture? What's, you know? And so I sat there, and then it bugged me one night. He said, what's your culture? I said, for what? He said, for what you do. I said, what do you mean? And I was lost. And it drove me crazy. I didn't sleep that whole night. I stayed up. I paced in my living room. For those of you that know me, that's a usual thing for me anyway, because if I get a hold of something, I don't let it go till I solve it. But before I get into it with anybody, if you ever get a chance, out of these 3 guys that I'm with, 2 of them you have to go see, right? I've seen Matt Hennessy coach at 2 different small towns. I have never seen a town, and I've been doing this I'm 48 years old. I've been doing this as long as I can walk the earth. My dad was a coach, my grandfather is a coach, and I married a coach's daughter. So I don't have any hobbies. I'm still trying to find one. You know, if there's anybody that knows, let me know. If there's something, I'll try it once, maybe twice. But I've never seen a man go in and change not just a football program, not just a school, but a city, a town, a belief, a religion. It's all those things that he has done. I've seen him do it twice now. The first time I thought it was a fluke, right? I said, this community is crazy. They just, whatever. Then I saw him do it again. And then I know, it's not a cult. It's not a glass of Kool-Aid, and it's not a magic pill. It's how he does things, or if you go and you visit Coach Blue, you start a program from scratch, there's always something to see there. I'll tell you that now. You can watch it from the start to the finish. There's always something there. But so if you get a chance, go do that. But somebody asked me, what is it, right? What is it? And I said, you know what? Culture for us, I had to sit there and it was middle of the morning now. It's like 5:36 in the morning. I sat down in my office at home now because we're all transitioning into that kind of a world. And I started to define, what is the culture for USA football and the U.S. national team, right? What is it? And some of these guys might laugh, right? Because timing's everything. But, it's the first and foremost, it's clarity, right? Be very clear. If not, no one knows what's going on. Like Bill said it, Heno said it, Blue said it, everybody said it. If you're not clear, how does anybody know what the hell's going on? And with what I do now, it's a lot different. I'm very clear, but I also have to connect with you. And that's the same thing that I ask of everybody that works with me and for me. Be very clear, but also connect with who you're talking to and who's listening. If you don't connect, you're just throwing words out in the air. Doesn't mean shit. Not going to get done. So be very clear and connect, right? The next thing is you better be very self-aware, right? I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm not good at. And I expect everybody in that room, when we shut the door and it's time to plan before we hit the field, everybody should do the exact same thing, man. You got to know what you can and can't do. Be very self-aware, because perception is reality in my business, unfortunately. Right? Perception is reality in football a lot of times, man, because a lot of times we've all been there. You're trying to take opinions and make them facts, right? You're trying to take opinions and make them facts and change. It's opinion-based business in a lot of ways, right? The facts is the record at the end of the year, right? Oh, Pahuska, they suck. 12-1, facts, right? Opinions to facts. That's what they do, okay? The other thing, along with our culture, the next part of it is, and this one's interesting, and some guys who know me very well know I make sure that this one happens in so many ways. It's emotional teaching, right? I want guys that are emotional teachers, not yelling and screaming and flailing, right? I only let Bill do that, and he only gets 14 minutes a day. If he goes over 14 minutes, I'm having an absolute shit fit.
5 minutes.
Your clock's fucked up. I give you 15 on the schedule. I just at 5, I get pissed. Okay. But I want emotional teachers, guys that are invested in what they're teaching, get emotional about it, right? I've seen guys get out on the field and that's not an emotional teacher. They're not getting into really, they don't believe what they're teaching you, right? They don't believe what they're teaching that player, whether that player's a 14-year-old girl or a 35-year-old man. They got to be emotional teachers to believe it. They have to really be invested to do it, okay? Another one, we hear it all the time. It's you got to be accountable, right? There's got to be some form of accountability in your culture, some form. And that's got to be personal to you. It's got to work for you. As the head coach, as a soldier in the program, whatever it is, the accountability has to work for you, whatever you deem it. That's what it is. It's got to be for you, because if it's not for you, you better change it. When I walked into this program, the accountability that was in this program didn't work for me. Bottom line, some of these guys in this room had to walk the walk with me, right? And had to go through it, had to go through the rites of passage to fix it, right? Because now it works for us, right? It works. And within accountability, the next step goes hand in hand with it. With being accountable, you got to be resilient in your culture. Okay? You can't just go in and say, well, we've done that before and let it go. Or we did that last year and we're good. Right? Heno's 12-1 right now. No, he's not. He's fucking 0-0. Got to be resilient. You got to keep the pedal down now. You can't just keep doing it once and it's over. Culture is an every day, every minute, every hour, every second thing. You got to work at it. You got to keep going. Got to be accountable with it and been resilient with it. And the last one, some of these guys are going to laugh when I say it because I rarely get to it. I'll be the first one. I'm terrible at it. I know I'm self-aware, right? You got to collaborate when you're ready, right? I'm not big on idea guys. It's a joke that we all have. I don't want to hear your fucking idea, right? But I got to collaborate with you when I'm ready, right? At times there's great ideas and timing's everything in your culture, right? But there's also a time when you got to be the head coach. Somebody's got to make the decision. At the end of the day, right? There might be 10 guys in the room, but somebody's got to make the call. Somebody has to make the call for the betterment of the program, the community, the city, whatever it is. Somebody's got to make it. So you got to collaborate when you do somehow, some way when you're ready. Some people don't ever get to that point, but that's like the pinnacle of it. For your coaches, you got to collaborate sooner or later. It can't be a one-man show. I'd say this all the time, and now a lot of the guys are going to laugh too. This is not the U.S. national AI team. It's not, right? But at the end of the day, I'm just the fuck that they put in the seat to make the decision. I'm lucky enough I got the seat. If you don't like it, fuck off. But that's where I am. I'm in the seat, right? That's how it works, right? That's how I feel about our culture. And I feel about what culture is and what I've taken from it. And that's what hit me at 5:30 in the morning one day. When after the night before, a friend said, well, what the hell is your guys' even culture? And I thought he was just throwing around a stupid word. And I actually, I don't know if Matt remembers, I called him the next day. And I asked him, I said, hey, man, this culture thing, I was thinking about culture all day. Matt kind of laughed at me, and we had a quick phone call about it, and we talked through it. But that's where I'm at for culture, Justin.
No, that was awesome. The one thing I really, well, all of it was really good, but the emotional teacher thing that really kind of stood out to me, man. I love that. I think, when guys are truly passionate about what they do, you'll never question it because it'll be evident. It'll be super evident and awesome stuff. I was writing all that stuff down and on my phone, so love it. If any of the other coaches on the panel wanted to add anything for what anybody said, we could certainly do that. And then obviously, if not, we can get right into the leadership portion. But any of you coaches on the panel wanted to add anything?
No, I thought, the one thing that I'm sitting there writing notes as fast as I can, and every guy out there talked about things that people can do. There's nothing there wasn't one thing on there. That person can't do that. Now, I say that I've been around some coaches that aren't very good emotional teachers. They're not coaches very long. They're not very good with that. But and I think my favorite quote of the night was AI collaborate. Besides, if you don't like it, whatever. But
that was my favorite.
Reality, man.
I might just get a sign in my office that says that. But
it's reality.
Collaborate when ready. The when ready is huge. I mean, you heard me talk the other day in my program building speech on, of building up your staff, giving them things to do, don't micromanage, blah, blah, but don't accept less than that is the when ready. That was clutch AI. Collaborate when ready. I mean, and the funny thing is I've been around AI a long time. I was one of the guys that was doing USA football before AI took over. And so to watch the change after he took over, the structure of it, the purpose of it, everything changed with USA football once he came in. But I just had to laugh when he said that because I can't, how many times I've been in rooms with a whole room full of coaches and everybody wants to have ideas and he just shuts them all down. And then as soon as the room thins down and it's me and Hammer and Matty G and Bill and those Tenor and those guys, it's all right now. You guys tell me what you think. Collaborate when you're ready and who you want to collaborate with, I think that was clutch AI.
It's reality though, right? You get in a room and, and I might get shot for this, but I'm going to say it anyway, because that's how I live. We talk about women in sports a lot, right? And I'm the best example in the whole wide world. I have 2 men on my staff and 11 women. My life is ran by women, flat out, right? It's pretty funny at times because I tell them, and I have the toughest 11 women in the world. You want to put a football team together, let me know. I got 11 women that will murder you. They are killers, but they now know when to collaborate and when not to, right? Now, it hasn't been easy. Some of them are very tough and very opinionated, and some of them have great resumes and they've been through it. But, and now that's, like I said, that's the pinnacle of it though, Matt. Like, that's the final, that's when you get to come through the ring of fire and you're scot clean free. Then you kind of know you're ready to collaborate, right? It's like, at that time, it's not for everybody. You know what I mean? There's times in your staff meeting, we've all been there, when that one coach talks, it probably shouldn't have said something.
Yeah.
Right? He just we've all been there. We've all seen that guy done it, or we've all been that guy as a young coach, maybe. And maybe the head guy wasn't ready to collaborate yet. He wasn't ready to talk about it as a group. Well, collaborate when ready.
Love it.
Yeah, awesome stuff. Definitely awesome stuff. All right, let's get into that leadership portion, guys. So we'll just circle back.
We're gonna run the snake.
Yes, sir. You
Yeah,
on it?
spin the block, as Hammer would say. Huh?
Yeah, I'm about to say spin the block.
Spin the block. Hammer, you're stuck with that one now, buddy. You know, I told Bill this. God, I tell him almost every day now when I talk to him. I'm around a group of guys in a lot of ways, and leaders, you know, leaders can be better. It's just like you can make a better football player, you can make a better leader. You really can. And we've all learned it in some form or fashion. We've all gotten better at it. And I'm lucky enough now, I got, 8 guys around me that I don't do anything without. And it's taken a while to build that. Right. I don't do anything without Matt. I don't do anything without Bill. I don't do anything without my guys, and we've all had a story on how they've all come to be and get with me. And, we've built this bond that's probably thicker than anything in the world. We're thicker than thieves in a lot of ways. One of these days we're all going to go coach together somewhere and have some fun. And
Win a bunch of games.
Yeah, no doubt. We'll put our toes in the water somewhere. Right. But, the same thing, leadership, I've done this part over COVID. I've done it a bunch. And I think leadership's 5 things. It's real simple, right? That's all it is. One of them carries over from culture. And it's the very first thing I talked about is clarity, right? And everything, you have to be a great communicator, right? I grew up in a coach's kid and a coach's grandkid, but on their personal level, my father and my grandfather were terrible communicators. Right? They were terrible. They didn't know how to use a telephone. They didn't know how to communicate what they were feeling. They didn't know how to say, I love you. They didn't know do any of that. So I went out when I was going to become a coach, and that was the first thing I said, I'm going to learn to communicate. And I learned to over communicate. I tell everybody over communicate. So you got to be clear, right? You got to be understood. That's part of being a leader, right? If you're not understood, that's the problem, right? Be very clear verbally and non-verbally, okay? Bill is a very loud talker, right? He's very clear. I can do the same thing Bill can do in 10 sentences. I can do with a stare.
True that.
Right? Non-verbal clarity. It's the same thing. Be clear. It's real simple, okay? The other thing is be decisive. That goes in with the clarity. Right? That's the next step to it, right? Don't be part-time, okay? Make up your mind on what you're doing. Got to be very decisive. You're going to make a bad mistake. You're going to make a bad call. Something's going to go wrong, okay? I go into every event, every team, everything we do, and I tell my young staff that works with me and for me, something's going to be fucked up, right? Get ready. Something's going to be screwed up. Even though we are the best in the world at what we do. There's nobody better. Something's going to be wrong, guys, that we can't control. So when it happens, no one flips out. That's why I have the crew that's probably cool as a cucumber 90% of the time. Because we know something's going to go wrong. We're just waiting for it so we can fix it. That's the problem, right? Be decisive. The other one's it's a risk to be a leader, right? It's a risk. It's not always fun. You've heard it. It's not always fun, but it's worth it. That's the one thing that people don't tell each other, that it is worth it. Okay. Leadership is a risk. It's a risk to go out there. You know, when we're developing young men and young women, they're always not going to go against the group, right? The peer group, because it's risky. Hey, all of a sudden I got to go back to school and they're not going to click like on my photo or whatever the hell we're doing nowadays, right? It's risky, man. It is. But that's the biggest thing. They got to step out from their own comfort zone because it's worth it. As a leader, you got to be passionate. We said the same thing with the emotional teaching. You got to be passionate, man. Got to be passionate. If you're not passionate, someone's going to make the decision for you. Who knows? It might be your AD. It might be your superintendent. It might be your wife. It might be your significant other. Somebody's going to make the decision for you if you're not passionate about it. If you're not attacking it. You know what I mean? Someone's going to make that decision for you, period. The last one is you got to have a little bit of humility, right? You got to really sometimes take a look in the mirror and know where you are, know when to talk and when to be silent. Have some humility about it, right? Because if not, you'll talk forever, you know, and you'll lose people. Then the message is not worth it. It's not. So have a little humility. So those are the 5 that we live and die by and we breathe, and I think are etched in stone somewhere on a rock in front of my house. And when you walk in the door, you better be ready.
Absolutely. Hey, I appreciate that, man. That's awesome stuff. I wrote down all those points. I agree with all of it. Tremendous stuff. Tremendous. Bill, you're up.
Y'all ready? All right.
We hope so.
Hang on, man. Did somebody give him a Red Bull or anything? Somebody slowing down.
First of all, I want to say this about leadership. I've been fortunate enough to be around some of the greatest leaders in the world. I was led in the first Gulf War by General Al Gray. I got to be in an environment that fed leadership in the Marine Corps, and it was a daily grind to become a better leader. And it was a daily grind to get promoted to that leadership rank. So I'm going to tell you something about leadership in high school football. Every coach needs to know this so he can prepare his kids for this. You know what the most unpopular thing in the world is? A leader. You know why? Because he's in charge of a lot of people that he has to make a decision and decisions every day that not everybody's going to like. And if he for 1 second is worried about what someone else thinks about his decision, he's not a leader and he's in the wrong damn business. He's in the wrong business. Leadership is the most unpopular position a high school football player can have, in my opinion. Being a captain on your football team is glamour and glory when you got that big C patch on you. But I'm going to tell you, you better be willing to give up hanging out with the boys. You better be willing to give up going to the party. You better be willing to give up a lot of social fun that you could be having because you're the leader. Leadership is very, very unpopular. You have to be comfortable with you or you can't lead nobody. And here in about a couple minutes, I'm going to give you the foundation of leadership, just like we did the other day on culture. And I'll tell you something, a story. In 1988 or 89, Billy Smarr was our captain of our football team. And he come up in the huddle. And back then, remember the days when we huddled on defense, guys? And had the 5 DBs standing back there, and the D-line was on the ground on one knee. Well, Billy Smarr was a leader. He went to play at the University of West Virginia, and he's a Secret Service agent right now in Dallas. He's a very successful man. He was our captain. He was our leader, and he had very few friends. His circle was small. Not a bunch of people liked him. Actually, I'm going to rescind that. Not a lot of people liked him, but they respected him. in a playoff game one night. He came up to me and I had one hand on the ground, one knee on the ground, and he came up and he punched me in the bottom of the face mask. He said, "Do not duck your head and let them see you tired over here. Get your head up." Well, I got an ego. What I do? This dude, I buck back at him. Get your hands off me. You know, whatever. So if you're not prepared to be unpopular, if you're not prepared to go without some of the fun stuff other guys get to do, you'll never be a leader. And I'm going to say something about communication, because this was a great point AI came up with before I go in to this sucker head over heels. Is there's a great quote you can learn from communication from Sun Tzu in The Art of War, which is a great book for football. Mike Leach plays a lot off of the Sun Tzu stuff. But if the instructions are clear from the leader, if the instructions are clear and the mission is not carried out, it is the fault of the subordinate. If the instructions are unclear and the mission is not carried out, it is the fault of the leader. That is why communication is so important. And I can tell you right now, if you see that guy right there with that burnt orange on his chest, one of the best communicators I've ever been around. That other one over there, Aaron Ingram, same thing. They're very clear on their instructions, and they will tear 7 shades into your ass when you don't do what you're told to do, when you're told to do it, how it's supposed to be done. You have to be clear. I love that AI. I just want to throw that in there before I get kicked off here. So I want to talk about leadership.
Bill, I got a question.
It's not a Yes, sir.
I got a question. Do you think it's a coincidence
Yes, sir.
that the 2 guys you've worked for recently get in your ass and are clear to you? Do you think maybe there's a hearing problem or
I didn't say you get into my ass anymore, but
Oh, okay. I thought maybe I got the hearing problem. I just know you said me and Henna would get in your ass. So I wasn't
other
sure.
people's ass. I know how to handle y'all. I know to do my shit when I'm with y'all. I don't, I get it. I've seen a lot of ass rippings that weren't mine. Let's just put it that way. And
that list is long.
I want to. Yes, and I'm glad we had this little break here, because I really want to bring this across hard, because you guys kill me, man. You talk about a buzzkill, damn it. But
hey, if it was fucking easy, anybody can do it. We'd get anybody on this goddamn thing. Pony up.
So here we go. I'm gonna throw some leadership at you right now. There's 2 kinds of leaders. And if you'll think about when I tell you about 2 kinds of leaders, think about coaches. There's 2 kinds of coaches too. There's passive leaders that aren't very verbal. They can tear you apart with their eyes and their body language. And they're that guy that might pull your face mask over there and say, "Son, you're better than that." Now, there's also authoritarian leaders. It's my way or the highway, and an authoritarian leader is different. I think I understand. I'm not going to say, I know that you have to lead to your personality, but you also have to lead to your team too. So we know there's 2 types of leaders. So saying that, who have you ever followed in your life? Who's led you? Like my high school coach led me. Aaron's led me through USA football. I had the opportunity to work for and with Matt Hennessy. So he led me. Think about your life, guys, in football and in life, and who's led you? Who are the great leaders in your life? Who's your Mount Rushmore of 4 people in your life? Your Mount Rushmore of the 4 greatest people in your life. I'll guarantee you they were the greatest leaders too. I have a Mount Rushmore. Of my own, and those are guys that have been great leaders in my life. So think about this. All the people that you followed, they were the leader. Why did you follow them? Why did you believe in them? Why did you do everything they asked you to do to the best of your ability for that person? Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you go be the leader? I'll tell you what, I'll tell you why you followed that person. Is because you believed he could get you there, wherever you're headed, whether it's a state championship or at the top of a Fortune 500 company. You followed that person because you believed that he could get you there, wherever there is, whatever the goal was. That's why you followed the people you followed in your life. Coach Hennessy played for one of the greatest coaches in the state of Oklahoma history, Ron Lancaster. They won a state championship as junior or senior, I can't remember, but he followed Ron Lancaster, Coach Lancaster, because he believed he could get him there. So why would you believe in a man? Why? Because I'm giving you the foundations of leadership. You got to know, you got to understand, if you're a leader, who are you leading? Who's following you? Who's following you and why are they following you? Who's following you and why are they following you? Because they believe you can get them there, to get them to the next level, get them to the championship, get them to the top. And they believe in you for a few reasons. Leaders have to be fair. If you are favoring this group over that group in your program, no one will ever trust you because that's not truth, and they will not follow you, and you will never lead in a very efficient way. And I say a very efficient way because there's people that can get teams going, but if you ever bring unfairness into your program as a leader, they will not follow you and you will not be leading anybody. You have to be fair. It has to be fair. You have to play the best 11, not the 11 best. You have to play the best 11, not the 11 best. And sometimes the best 11 ain't the 11 best because of character. Because sometimes kids get to play over kids that have done all the right things, and this kid didn't do all the right things. And like Dennis Franchione said a long time ago in my career, you will never fool a kid. If you think you'll fool a kid, you're crazy. You will never fool a kid. If you're not fair, you're not a leader because they will not follow you and you won't be leading anybody. You have to be fair. And them kids know what's going on in that locker room. They know how much you care. They know how much you work. They know how much time you put in. And if you're favoring one kid over another because of a parent or a group in town or playing that political game of playing the right kids because the money and this and that and this, it's high school football all over America, my friends. There are some great leaders, and the great ones are fair. Why would you follow me? Because you believed I could get you there. Well, why did you believe I could get you there? Because I was fair. And the next thing, I'm an ABC 1, 2, 3 guy. I don't give you a bunch of stuff. Why would you follow the leader? Because he's fair. And the second thing, and not all leaders are the same on this one. You have to at least believe that the guy cares about you or whoever's leading you. They have to know you care. I didn't think Coach Michaels liked me in high school, but I found out later in life that he was prouder of me than any kid he ever coached because I made it. I didn't think he didn't care. That wasn't his personality to care about, to show all this love and affection. That wasn't him. It wasn't like me and AI and Hino when we meet up, it's a damn tackling drill, you know. Oh, you know, we care about each other and we show it that way. But leaders have to know you. If you're a leader, they got to know you care about them. They got to know you care about the program. One time a coach told me they had won the runner-up to the state championship, and he had the silver ball, and he said, you know what? That silver ball is sitting in the corner over there, and we grinded for that thing, and we didn't win it. And the head coach, you know, he don't care because it was all about him. I said, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, man, this ain't about the program. It's all about him. Well, If you think people don't know, as a leader, when you're in charge of people, they know what you care about. And they got to know you care about the program and you care about them. If they believe for 1 second that you're unfair and that you don't care, they think you're in it for you, you're not leading anybody. Why would I follow you? Because I believed you cared about me. I believed that you could get me there and you were fair with me. And the last thing I'll say on why I would follow you is because you're dependable. I can count on you. You know, there's the leaders, and then there's everybody else. Not everybody's going to be a leader. Not everybody wants to be a leader. Some of the greatest football coaches I know in this world do not want to be head coaches. They like the role. They like what they're doing. They don't need to be in charge. They don't need all the stuff that goes with being a head coach, which is not as glamorous as y'all think. That ain't one. They don't want that. But they know they can count on you. You're dependable. If you got in a bind, they believe that their boss would bail them out. They believe that their boss would have their back. They believe that their boss would go the extra mile. You know, I don't know if everybody's been in the positions that I've been in. Everything, you know, that I'm telling you is from my conditioning, the things that I've been through as a head coach. But there's been many times that we've had to help coaches out with the booster club of giving them a couple $1,000s to help them move. But they got to know that you're going to do everything that they can depend on you to help them. And don't get me wrong, it ain't as glamorous as I'm making it out to be, because it's harder today. It's almost like babysitting teenagers sometimes with some of these coaches right out of college. It's not easy. They got more needs than a daggum cheerleading squad. But they got to know that they can depend on you to either slap them on the wrist and tell them to start acting like a big boy, or help them out of a bind, help them out. So that's leadership, and the foundations of it for me is, why am I following a guy? I'm following him because I believe he can get me there. And if people don't believe you can get them there, they're not going to follow you. If you're unfair, they're not going to follow you. If you favor these kids over these kids, they're not going to follow you. If you don't care about every kid in that program, they're not going to follow you. You have to be dependable. You have to be fair. They got to know you care, and they will follow you. And the last thing I'll say on leadership could go on for, you guys know this, months at a time. We could talk about leadership without missing a beat, without coming up for air. But I'll say the last thing about leadership in football specifically: you better be organized, you better be structured, and you better have discipline, because those are the things that are going to make you a great leader. When you structure something, you create a discipline, you build character, and you care about them people. You have a machine then, the same things every day, over and over. Makes it real easy to be a leader when you have structure, when you have protocols, when you have systems for every little thing in your program. You have to be leadership. Yeah, I would say, even if you didn't have great leadership qualities and you were young and you were developing, because guess what? Some of you real good coaches are going to be leaders someday. You're going to jump in there. You're going to move up the ladder. You're not going to be very good at first. You're going to bust your ass. You're going to learn. But you better have it structured. You better create discipline in your program. You better build character, and you better love them. They better know you care. And you're going to screw up. You're going to screw up. But you better learn. You're either winning or learning in leadership, and it lasts your whole life. Matt Hennessy will be taking notes tonight, Aaron Ingram, both these, because we're trying to learn for our whole entire career, our whole life. It keeps us young, and that's what leaders do. That's me. Thank you. And who's next?
Love it. I love it. I love it. There was fellas, there was a couple questions that came in, but we'll get to them at the end. So Coach Blue, it's on you.
All right, cool. Yeah, there was. I saw those questions. There's some good ones in there I'd love to talk about. So, yeah. So honestly, this kind of two parts, to this for me. So, quick story. My stepdad was a pastor And he came into my life when I was in junior high. I was in 8th grade. So kind of a tough transition going into high school. And, you know, it's just me and my mom, my younger brother. And then he kind of came into our lives, and he was like I said, he was a pastor. And at the time, you know, I hadn't really had a male in my life. And so he used to always say this thing, you know, because I would, you know, obviously tell my mom I love her. And he would be like, son, do you love your mom? He's like, because love is what love does. And I never got it. I was like, what the hell does that even mean? Like, she's my mom. She brought me in this world. Like, obviously I love her. And so, you know, something would happen, and, you know, he would get upset about something. He's like, you keep saying you love your mom, but man, love is what love does. And I think part of it was, you know, I just didn't like him. You know, I'm at that age, you know, I'm a teenager, you know, trying to come into my own. And so I ain't trying to hear anything anybody's saying. And, you know, and actually, honestly, I grew up playing basketball. And at the time I was a pretty damn good basketball player. So you couldn't tell me nothing, right? I knew exactly what I was doing. I knew I loved my mom. And it wasn't until a long time after, you know, and honestly, you know, as an adult and getting married and having my own kids, where I kind of resonated and realized what he was talking about. And because love is an action word. It's something that, you know, that you have to do in order for someone to really know that you love them. And so, you know, kind of how that translates into, you know, being a leader is we talk about this all the time, is, you know, that we as head football coaches or football coaches in general, that we have to show tough love, because it's a tough sport and it's a physically demanding sport. But oftentimes we kind of leave that love part off. Right? We show the tough, but we don't show that we care. We don't ask those questions outside of us get our own agenda and how they're going to perform for us on the football field. And so as I, you know, kind of came into my own and got the opportunity to be a head coach, and honestly, even before that, you know, just being a DC and being a position coach, I kind of quickly found out that the more that you can show interest and the more that you can be there for them and have actions that show that you care outside of what they're going to do for you on the football field, they're going to really see that, and they're going to follow you anything that you do. Right. And it's part of that caring aspect. I know Bill talked about, you know, he had a coach that he thought hated him, you know, until years down the road where he accomplished, you know, some stuff in his life, and then found out like, oh, he was doing that, you know, because he cared about you. Right. I live very firmly on the aspect that I'm gonna let you know now. Like, I'm gonna let you know now that I care about you, that I love you. This is why you're doing this. This is why I'm being hard on you, because I love you. I want you to get better, right? Giving that love immediately after you're tough on them. And having those actions. Again, like my boys, they know, they all got my number. They can call me at 2:00 in the morning. I don't care. I'm answering the phone. I'm really big on, you know, getting our kids opportunities to go play at the next level. I'm sending out emails every day, calling coaches every day. Like, I'm making those actions towards it, and I'm letting them know, hey, I contacted so-and-so, here's the deal, right? And those simple actions show that I love them, that I'm in this for them. It's not my own agenda. You're going to work for me. You're going to be on the football field. You're going to bust your butt for me. I'm going to do the same thing and reciprocate that. So that's just that tough love. You know, don't dismiss the love aspect of it, because the toughness might not resonate with them. It might come across differently. I mean, kind of on top of that, you know, and this really kind of came about, to be honest with you, and it's kind of good timing, I guess, with, you know, all the social unrest stuff that, you know, has happened with, you know, the Black Lives Matters and all that, you know, and obviously me being, you know, a Black head coach and predominantly coaching, you know, a white team. You know, I think we have 3 Black kids that were on our team last year. So, you know, really we're not a huge program, but like 50 players, and I have 3 that are Black. Right. So I'm a Black head coach. One of, I think we have 14 in Arizona out of, you know, the 600, 700 high schools that we have that play football. So it was a time where I had, and we're in COVID, right? So we're not allowed to do a lot of things, you know, with our players face to face. And I'm seeing all this stuff on social media, and, you know, and then a lot of my Black colleagues in Arizona are, you know, they're posting and they're you know, expressing what their agenda or whatever their feelings are about it. So I really had to kind of self-reflect on what I wanted to do and what my role was, you know, in this, and kind of in reflecting and figuring all that out. I really figured out that, you know, my role and my responsibility. I'm a planter. I'm going to water it and I nurture it. Like that's what my role is. I'm not one of the guys that goes out and, you know, cuts down trees. It's not abrasive for me. I'm a nurturer. I like to develop people. And so in that, I found out that, we kind of in that situation, kind of left it to our youth to kind of figure this out by themselves. We had a lot of adults, that were going out and rioting. And then my kids, thinking, well, if I don't go out and protest, like, am I part of the problem? Like, what is my role in all of this? And so it quickly came to the head where I realized that I needed to make sure that I was interjecting in that and facilitating what their thought process would be. And we talk about, in that situation, you saw it all over, especially, I know all of you guys follow coaches, and, we have this kind of network on, especially on social media, where you saw, if the world was like a football locker room, it'd be a better place. Right. And so that was definitely, and that is definitely a lesson. And we know that as adults and as coaches, but sometimes we don't communicate that with our players. Right. So there's all these inherent lessons in football, which we talk about all the time, like toughness, resilience, that can do, fighting through adversity, right? Learning how to be a good winner, learning how to be a good loser, how to bounce back from being a loser. Like all those things are things that you're going to happen in your life. And most often we don't communicate that to our players, right? It's inherent. It's inherent, but it's not obvious. It's not always obvious. And so I think it's important as a leader to make sure that when we're teaching those lessons, that we're being obvious about it and we're doing it with an intent. I give the example of the sled, pushing the sled, and we've all had these players, right? All had these players that, didn't quite have it in them. They weren't necessarily the most physically gifted kids, but they were part of the team. They're part of the family. And they always got to a point where they wanted to break down and stop, right? They're pushing the sled, we're pushing it 10 yards, and they get to 5. And you can see it in their face. You can see it in their body. They're just giving up, right? And you keep pushing them. You're pushing them like, hey, come on, you can do this. Then, runs out of time, right? All right, we're done. All right, but hey, we're doing it tomorrow, right? So tomorrow, hop back on the same thing. They keep pushing, right? And then we're like, all right, get it tomorrow, right? So we're inherently teaching them to never give up, right? And we're inherently teaching them that, hey, you got support. Like, we're here for you, right? But we never tell the kid. So every day that kid goes home feeling like a failure. Like he didn't accomplish that. He's pissed off, right? Unmotivated, coming the next day, knowing he's got to do it again, right? And he doesn't really want to do that, right? So there's a lesson in there, but as coaches, it's our responsibility to make sure that we're making it obvious, right? So that first day that kid doesn't make it, and you keep pushing him, he doesn't make it, he's not going to make it. All right, we're done. But come here. Hey, do you know why I'm pushing you? Because I believe in you, man. Like, I think you can get this done, right? So automatically he's like, okay, my coach is pushing me because he thinks I can get it done, right? So then ultimately, and you guys all know this, right? They're all very capable, especially when we tap in. I know Bill talked about it, right? That tapping into that mental toughness. So they're gonna get it. He's going to get to that 10 yards, right? And then once he does, if you've already laid the foundation of telling him, hey, this is why I'm pushing you. This is why we're going to do it every single day, because I believe in you. I know you can get this done. And then once they get it, it's not just, oh, hey, great job. All right, moving on. Next task. It's, hey, come here. What did you learn out of that? That if you just keep pushing, man, you're going to get it done. You're going to get there. You're going to reach your goals. Just keep pushing, right? And then you tell them, hey, in life, you're gonna have these situations, man. Like, I don't care how awesome you think your life's gonna be. You get a great job, you're making millions of dollars. At some point, some adversity is gonna come into your life, and you're gonna have to push. You're gonna have to push in it, but eventually you'll get there. Like, it's no different from this sled that you just killed. Right? You're going to get to that point. So all these inherent lessons, and there's so many, right? I think you should make them obvious, and that should be part of your intent as a coach to make sure that your boys are taking every single lesson from that, right? The locker room. I talked about it at length, in that situation. And I was like, how am I going to address this situation with my team? Because there's no way I can, right? There's absolutely no way I can't bring this up. And I know AI talked about it. Like, you got to be, he didn't say it this way, but saying you got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Like, and that's a situation where I've never had to address it. I've only been a head coach for 4 years. This is the only time something like this major has happened in my 4 years. Hey, I got to do it. But how am I going to do it, and what's going to be my agenda? right? And so I again saw those posts, and it's 100% right? If the world was like a football locker room, we'd be a much better place. So I told him, I was like, hey, this is your responsibility. Take whatever you learn from this locker room, right? Because you guys don't care. The kid next to you that's short, that's overweight, that's black, white, Asian, whatever, you don't care because they wear knights on their chest. They fight their butts off, and they're here with you every single day, right? So you don't care about their talent level. You don't care about anything other than they're a part of this, right? So take that with you outside of this. Take that with you out in the world. Take that with you when you're an adult. Tell your kids when they grow up that that's how it should be, right? So that lesson that's inherent, right? And if I didn't say anything, the boys probably, maybe some of them got it. Maybe some of them would have understood it. But I wanted to make sure as a leader that they all understood that these lessons that are inherent in our program and in our game, this lovely game that we play, I'm going to make it very, very obvious for you, right? And so that's kind of my thing with the aspect of being a leader and things that you can do intentionally to make sure that you're leading your group. And the last thing, that I'll say, I have this thing that I always tell all my kids, when they, especially because I've had 4 classes. This is my last class. My full first class is going to be leaving. And my wife, asked me, what is it that you're really trying to get relationships with this? Like, what's your end game, right? And for me, I want to be invited. I want to be invited to their college graduation, whether or not I go or not. I want to be invited to college graduation, or I want to be invited to their wedding. Right? And if I get those invitations, I know that I did a good job leading. Right? And so if you kind of operate in everything that you do in your program as a leader, you kind of have that in your mindset that, like, if I get that invitation in the mail to their college graduation, that means that I did what I was supposed to do. I was a good leader. And they go to get married, a monumental, moment in their lives, and they send you that invitation to their wedding. You did a good job leading, right? Because sometimes you got to kind of figure out, like, am I doing a good job? Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And so that's kind of my intent. That's kind of the things that I talk about. Hey, tough love. Don't forget the love, right? All the lessons in this game, don't leave it to be interpreted in their way. Make it obvious, and then try to get invited. And I think if you have those 3 things in your coaching, I think you're going to be all right.
I love that, Coach, man. That's real. Obviously, you said a ton of incredible stuff. The one thing that really kind of stuck out to me, and I think about this a lot at my high school, is just, the belief in, especially a kid, right? The belief in a kid is so important, because there's many times where we may be the only ones that believe in them. You know what I mean? Where, depending on where they're coming from, depending on what their home life is, whatever, we may be the only ones that believe in them. So if we're that last resort and we don't come through for them, then what? You know what I mean? Right. So I love that you said that. So I really appreciate that for sure. Heno, take us home, baby.
I'm going to flip the script again, or flip the block, or spin the block, or whatever it is. Hammer
In
said.
the block.
He ain't get it right. Come on.
Come on, man.
Bill talked about it, and I think all 3 guys gave great points for our coaches that are out there of how to be a great leader if they're wanting to be a leader. Here's what I'll tell you about being a leader. They gave all the great points. Like Bill said, you got to be able. Here, I wrote them all down. You got to be white. Somebody's going to get you there. They got to be fair. They got to care. Got to be. Yeah, those are great leadership roles that you should take, and hopefully that is who you are. But here's the problem. The way I see it as a leader is anybody that somebody follows. One of the greatest leaders in the world was Hitler. Now, he wasn't a good person. He didn't lead them the right way. Jones made him drink the Kool-Aid. AI referred to the Kool-Aid. Hammer thinks that I've got a cult. Hammer came and watched the game, thinks I got a cult going on here in Pahuska, because pretty much wherever I say, they just kind of fall in line and follow. And but you can lead them however you want. So the leader is just somebody who follows. So these guys all gave a great script on things you need to be cognizant about, things you need to be thinking about as far as you being a leader. But I think our number one goal is to develop leaders within our team. And you got to develop your players. Your coaches. Sometimes you got to develop them. Everybody wants to be a leader. But we've all had that kid, the rah-rah guy that, man, he's a really good player. But nobody ever follows him. And he doesn't know how. So the thing that I've started, I think has helped me the most over my 158 years of coaching is starting leadership council and starting to try to pick the guys that I think are leaders. So what I do is I pay attention and I watch and I say, okay, who are these guys following? Sometimes they're leading guys the wrong way. They're not always the best kids on my team. They're not always the guys that I want. I wouldn't put a C on their jersey. They're not doing good in school. They're not doing the things that I tell them. But I look up and guys are following them. So they are leaders. So I think it's our job to develop them. So what I do is I've started leadership council. And we start that in the spring. We'll start up here pretty quick. And we've got a whole leadership. I don't know if I said that. I can send it to whoever needs it. But I've got a whole leadership lessons that I go through. And I bring them in and we do it on Wednesdays and we have pizza and we have leadership lessons and they take notes and we go through a notebook. Then they have an assignment each time that they've got to do, trying to develop their leadership skills. But I'm gonna share my screen here real quick.
Woo!
There you go.
Woo!
Here's our leadership council and how I determine leadership council. So we're gonna meet at least, it says on there twice a month. That's during season. Okay, we start the leadership council in the spring, and we meet every week and go through the leadership lessons, trying to do it. So, who's on leadership council? Ideally, and it can change depending on you. You might have a big class and small class, whatever. But ideally, I go with 4 seniors, 3 juniors, 2 sophomores, and a freshman. And what am I looking on? And what am I trying to develop? And I give this sheet to them. And why they're going to be on there. They're going to be modelers. Their personal values and priorities must align with our team core values. I got to make sure they can walk the talk. So when it says can be changed anytime, the first time I picked the leadership council, I picked guys, and I'll have some guys raising eyebrows at me on the team saying, whoa, why did that dude get picked? Well, he got picked. He may not be doing it right yet, but people are following him. So I'm going to try to change him. So right there, and I give them all this sheet, they got to walk the talk because all of a sudden they're proud that they got on leadership council. I put it out. I take a big picture, put it on Facebook, do all the things. I'm not as good as Blue at blowing that stuff up, but I'm trying to get to his level. Next thing these guys got to be able to do is they got to be able to inspire others. They got to energize, orient, meaning teach them and involve the other players. Then they got to be able to challenge them. They got to be able to go compete, but understand and have a voice within the players. Because I'm going to tell you right now, as hard as we may try, we don't necessarily lead our locker room. You got to have guys in your locker room leading your locker room. You're not going to be right next to them. We do it the best we can when we're there, but you're not always right there with them. They've got to be able to enable their teams. They got to know their teammates. They got to know what's going to make them click, and then they got to be able to talk to me. And then they got to be able to encourage their teammates. So I'm looking at guys that can do that. What is their role? So then I give them roles. I say, here's your role. Your role is motivation. Okay. You don't have to be a rah-rah guy. Some guys are. Some guys are your rah-rah guys. Some guys are your guys you see over there talking to a guy on the sidelines that's having a bad day, getting him through a weight room workout, whatever, but they can motivate. Inspiration. This comes from doing it themselves. The inspiration comes from letting them watch them do it. Communicating. This is a two-way street. I tell them all the time, this communication is huge. And it's a two-way street. They've got to be my voice in the locker room. They've got to be the player's voice in the coach's office. They got to be able to walk in anytime knowing they can talk to me or one of the coaches about what's going on in the locker room, what needs to be changed, what's not good, what's bad going on downtown on Friday nights. Maybe there's something coaches are doing that the players all hate. And, hey, coach, what can we talk about this? So you have to have an open door and allow them to communicate. Their job is to be team building. They got to bring that team together in the locker room. They've got to be for promoting change. If something's not right, they got to fix it. And again, this can go a lot of different ways and interpret it as many ways as you want to, whether it's promoting change of how we're doing practice that's not working with the players, promoting change with the players don't trust him. Maybe we think he's awesome, but that person needs to change. And then reward systems. I let them help me come up with ways that we reward the team. One thing we did though, now the things before I tell you, let's go over this last part and then I'll say something, but it's very important because now you're going to give them the role of a leader. I think it's very important to put them in a box a little bit. Make sure you define what is not their role. They need to know what's my job. That's not their job. First thing, setting the vision. I'm going to set the vision for it. I'm going to establish our core values. I'm going to create the structure. I don't need them coming up and saying, hey, we want 20 more minutes individual and let's go less team or let's go all team. I don't need that. I'm going to create the structure. The selection and training, meaning, what plays we're going to run, how we're going to do our workouts, what percentage we're going to do. I don't need them designing that stuff. That's my job. And then the strategy behind how we're going to run the whole program. They don't have to do that. I tell them, leaders know the way and show the way. One thing I'll tell you right now is it's that I did last year that I stole from, I think it was the Dallas Cowboys, actually. They let them come up and determine what their standards are going to be. Not the vision of the program, not their culture, not the big, but they let them determine the standards. So I let my leadership council vote. One of the things they have to do is they're going to determine our team standards. And then I make them help me enforce it. So that makes damn sure they can't be screwing it up. And they got to make, so be on time was one of them they put. Communicate was one of the, take care of your body was one of the things they put. So they picked some things that were the standards and we made huge posters. And we put Husky standards as determined by you. And we put them all over the locker room and they have to do that. So I just think it's important that you develop your leadership council, develop your players to be leaders. I know everybody else talked about being a leader as a coach, and that was awesome. And so I just kind of took it a different way of I think one of our big goals, we better develop the leadership in that locker room, and you're going to be able to figure it out. I'm going to show you one last deal here that actually Bill gave me it's just funny, we talk about we steal everything. That's the stuff that I love what Justin's doing. Matter of fact, we talked before everybody got on there. Somebody came and tried to steal everybody's meetings and put it on their own deal and start charging, to see all the videos he's doing for free. Man, this is our chance to give back. There is nothing, I guarantee you, AI didn't say one thing today that he hasn't heard from somebody else. He packaged it different. He decided which order to put it in. He decided what was important, but he heard, I've stole all this from somebody. We've all stole it from somebody. And I think it's just funny because he's on there that I stole this from Bill. This is a leadership quiz that I give the whole team. Matter of fact, we'll be doing it in February, do it at the start of February. So I'm going to show you this little leadership quiz, and I think it's pretty cool. You're welcome to steal it. But especially when I take a new job, I hand this out, and it's so awesome to read, the answers. But let them write down who are the top 4 leaders on the team in order. I want their opinion. Ask them the opposite. Ask them who are the 2 people on the team you wouldn't trust. Ask them who are the 2 people on the team that lift the team up when things are going bad. And then 2 people on the team that bring the team down when things are going bad. And these last 3 questions are my favorite. If you were hanging off the edge of the cliff by a rope, who on this team would you want on the other end? The joke last year was Jamar because he weighed 350 pounds with that man. Off cliff. He's got a hold of it. But, then we talk about trust on that a little bit. The next one is Homini's our big rival, so pick your big rival and insert them there. If you're in Hominy about to get jumped by 5 guys, who on the team you gonna call? It's so funny reading this stuff. Sometimes they just write the dude who they think's the toughest dude on the team, and that's cool to know. But on other times, it's the one that who's going to answer the phone, And then the last one is if you were broke down in Oklahoma City, I'll just put that because it's like 2 hours away from us. Who on the team? Don't put broke down in town because make it inconvenient. Make it inconvenient. If you're broke down Oklahoma City, who on this team would you call? So it's an easy deal that the kids get a little kick out of, but you get to find out what their opinions are of each other. And you learn real quick who your leaders are. So I'll do that here at the start of February, because starting March 1st, we start Leadership Council. So I will pick the Leadership Council off that sheet. And watching. You got to watch too. You watch year round. Who are the guys following? Who's doing what? So you're going to watch them, but also get their opinions and involve them as much as possible. Because I know, that was one of the questions over there on the side. Kind of was, what the process. When do you want them to take ownership? They got to take ownership the whole time. I think. I think I want those guys to take it, but I think it's our job to teach them how to be a leader. Because just because you're a leader, you might, and they might be leading the wrong way. I know we've all had that leader that screws up. And so how do you deal with him? That's when you bring him in real quick and you talk to him about Hitler, and you talk to him about Jim Jones, and you talk to him about big time leaders, but man, they led the wrong way. And what do you want to be remembered as? And it's funny how that hits home to them, because they don't want to be leading the wrong way. So I'll turn it back over to you, Justin, and take us where we need to go.
Well, Heno, since you kind of touched on that one question that was asked, there was a second part to that. So if you want to just knock this one out. So obviously the question was the process of effectively leading young people. Do you turn your ownership over to your players? So you touched on that. And then the second part was, when you see a player or coach is not leading the way you expect, how do you correct the action?
For me, that's what I talked about. You got to bring them in and talk to them. You got to have that trust. If it's a coach, if it's anybody in a leadership role, whether it's your leadership council, whether it's a captain, captain's patch is big to me. I don't know how you guys do captains, but my captains have been on my leadership council. But not all, however many I've got. And I don't give a damn if you're a senior, junior, sophomore, whatever. I'm going to pick the top dudes. And it gets guys' feelings hurts. I have more parent meetings over captain's patches than I do anything else. And I don't care. They better get ready for the meeting, because I'm going to tell them exactly why. And I am not afraid to rip a captain's patch off. We sew them on. I tell those kids, hey, they're a lot easier to take off than they are put on. Mm-hmm. But as you got to bring those guys in. It's like I said, throw out the Hitler leader story. Throw out the Jim Jones. Find a leader that was a big-time leader, had tons of followers, I guess is how I should say it, was not a good leader. And give them that visual and try to get that. At that point, it's that, the old saying, either change who you're with or change who you're with. I mean, if you can't change them, then you got to change them.
No doubt. No doubt. Appreciate that, Coach. It was asked to the rest of the panel, so if you guys want to chime in on that, whoever wants to. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll say something on leadership, too, that Matt reminded me of. I'll tell you the most important thing I think that coaches miss, and I don't like this. I especially don't like in the day and age we live in. Matt touched on this a little bit, but age don't make you a leader. Leadership makes you a leader. And I've said this for many years. Same things me and Matt repeat. Obviously, we're family, so we've been around each other enough to know. I always tell the leaders that, hey, who's following you? Who's following you, and why are they following you? It's like the Hitler and Jim Jones thing. Who's following you and why? And I think that resonates with kids a lot. I've seen it. I've seen it in Matt's program. I've seen it in my program. And the last thing I'll say on that is that little deal that Matt has, that sheet. If you want to figure out your team, that little sheet will do it for you. Mm-hmm. It's you might get a hold of him to get that.
Oh yeah. No, he should already know that the coaches are going to be asking about it. That's for sure.
When I did that, I actually wanted to know all those things. I went into a bad situation, and I wanted to know who was going to. I could just see it. I think I touched on this earlier. You go, or maybe Matt, you walk into a place and you look around, you see what you got to figure out to change that culture. What are they doing to each other? How they acting? How they talking? What are the problems? Is it discipline? Is it so? That little deal that we use is pretty damn solid.
No, that's awesome stuff, guys. For real, awesome stuff.
I'll say with the coaches, kind of handle that situation. You know, I know we said it like a million times on here, and it's true. I mean, it's communication, and it's setting those expectations, you know, right at the very beginning. And us as, you know, most of us have been a head coach, and honestly, I would say AI probably has the most insight on this, because other than maybe an NFL staff, I don't know anyone who deals with as many high caliber coaches, and they all have to buy into what his vision is and what his expectations are. And we're not able to go outside of that, right? Like we get held accountable if we go outside of that. So it's the same for your program. Set those expectations early. Let them know how we're going to handle this thing. Like, I know, like, you know, hanging out with you guys all know, like, I mean, I cuss, but in my program, we don't cuss. Like, I don't cuss, my coaches don't cuss, and then boys, they get punished when they cuss. And so I set that expectation before you even get hired, before you're even on my staff, right? If we have a certain scheme, if there's certain things that we want to teach, like we teach, you know, the same USA football tackling, like we don't put our head across. So you can't come in our program trying to coach that, right? And then in a situation where they do that, they do go against those things first, you've already set the expectation. So you have a foundation to talk to them about, and you can go back to that and refer back to that. Like, hey, we talked about this before I even brought you on my staff, right? Or we talked about it this year. You've been on my staff. We talked about it this year. This is how we're going to do it this year, right? And so I think you don't want to stop them, you know, unless it's something like, you know, you're talking safety or things like that. You don't necessarily want to stop them while they're doing it, mostly because you want to get to the side, take it in the office, because you also want to make sure that they maintain their authority for their position or what you have hired them to coach. But you got to remind them, you know, what the expectations were that you immediately talk. Now, where you kind of lose any type of you know, leg to stand on is if you don't do that. You know, if you have them come in, you have them do a responsibility, and you don't set the expectations, very difficult for you to go back and say, hey, like, that's not what we wanted to do. Well, you're the head coach, you're running it. You need to make sure you set those expectations at the very beginning. So, so to answer that question, yeah, like you see a coach that's saying something, doing something that's not on par with what your program represents, you do have to address it. I think you have to address it depending on the situation, obviously. I think you try to address it, I should say, on a one-on-one basis outside of your players. So that way he still maintains that authority for the position you hired him to do.
Yeah, and that was actually the other question. You know, if you disagree with the coach, the best way to handle it behind closed doors, or should it be dealt with immediately so that everybody knows that nobody is above reproach? And Blue, I think you were kind of saying just make sure, you know, it depends on the situation and whatnot. The AI, do you want to touch on that one, that specific question?
I want to know first who's trying to steal your stuff and charging, because I know a bunch of people that are going to show up and whoop that guy's ass.
Yeah, I had to. That was so the first time around, someone had sent it to me and like, oh, you know, I saw this on, and I'm like, okay. So I reached out to the guy. I had him take it all down, but I'm like, come on, man. Like, this is not what we were doing. Not what we're doing at all. So
no, not at all. That's not the point of it.
No, at all.
No.
You know, we've talked about that. That was never my intention.
Yeah, man, somebody's gonna get jumped. And Blue, I'm with you. You know, cussing's an art. It is. It's art.
It is.
Right?
You're an artist.
It's an art.
Hey, you used to say about General Patton that he could use the F word so eloquently.
You know, I grew up in some rough neighborhoods at times as kids. You know, as a coach, as kids, sometimes, you know, you don't have everything. You know what I mean? You don't have new shoes. That's probably why I try to have new shoes. Or, you know, we didn't eat the best at times or whatever. There was this lady, Blue, that lived across the street. This older black family. You know, I lived in the hood, like, you know, and she could say the word motherfucker better than anybody. and to this day, when I get a chance to go home, I always drive into that neighborhood and I always stop and say hi, and I always ask her to say motherfucker just once for me. and it gives me no better joy and no better juice to go. And then usually I'm going to the Bay Area Regional right after. So then all those guys get to hear me say, you know, motherfucker for probably 2 days straight. You know, as far as like, when do you give it over, right? When that's the art and the science and the secret sauce, right? That's like, That's Chick-fil-A trying to tell all of us how to run the drive-through, right? That's the art, right? That is, but I think you're never right and you're never wrong. I really do. Like everybody wants to know, when do you do it? You know what I mean? When is that perfect time to have it go? But like the best ones, you know, the best programs we all know are player ran. You know, it just shows how all of us coaches, we're real stupid. It really, you know what I mean? We're stupid because if they can run it and they can do it, cool. Well, either you did a hell of a job or they don't need you, one of the two. So, but like, you're going to make a mistake always. Like there's a time when they're not going to be ready and then you got to step in and fix it. But it's just like the mom pushing the bird out of the nest. They're going to fall. You just got to accept it, right? They're going to fall. You got to accept it, but then they're going to get back up. And it's when they get back up and that the process of what you do when they fall to get them back up to fix it, that's what makes them ready. It's not so much that they're ready when you push them out of the nest. It's not, you know what I mean? I have to do it all the time, you know, and that's a huge question of mine. Are they ready? You know, is this guy ready? You know, I ask, you guys all know my sidekick in life, Charles, who's become a Vogue fashion model.
Right?
Yeah.
You know,
I had to mute his Twitter.
and
The Instagram is blowing up, though. The Instagram is blowing up.
blowing it up. I'm gonna bust his ass in about 72 hours. I'm gonna get him. He's mine. It's just like I tell him all the time. And if he can't answer me this question, then the guy's not ready. And he knows, is he ready? I want to know, is he ready? You know what I mean? And it just, that's a good one. I like Hammer's question here. Look at
I
Hammer.
was about to get on that.
Hey, before you do, Justin, I want to say something on the one that asked about how you handle it. I think a lot of that depends on your role. If you're the head coach, you can handle it however the heck you want. If they're not doing it how you want, and you've laid down your laws, you know, and you've laid down, you know, Blue says his guys aren't allowed to cuss. If they're cussing, fix it. You know, we tell our guys do the best you can, but I mean, obviously I also talk about get in where you fit in. That's why I don't coach at a private Christian school. I'd get fired the first week.
Right.
But
Hallelujah.
you know, but we have rules, you know, of hey, code blue, level 3. We have little code words that we say. It says, hey man, quit cussing. I told you, code blue, level 3. You don't have to embarrass somebody. You don't have to, you know, but it might be somebody to be corrected. But the person that asked the question, if you're an assistant, I don't think there's ever a time that you should address your boss on the field because you disagree with them in front of the kids.
Never.
If you do, you need to be looking for a new job. I tell my guys all the time, hey, it is 100% fine to disagree with me, and let's do it behind closed doors. And when we walk out, you may have changed my mind, or maybe you didn't. And then we're going to make a decision. You know, we're going to walk out together. And I will also tell you this, if there's any, I know there's probably a bunch of young coaches on this call. Probably the biggest thing I ever learned, it happened with me with Coach Lancaster, okay? He's my mentor, and I was a first-year coach. He put me in charge of making the dude do rolls and, do whatever. I had to punish the kid. Some kid before practice got in trouble. Kid was just being lazy, talking back to me. I got all pissed off. So I go over there, and Lancaster, the team's getting ready to come out on the field for practice, and he's right in the middle by all of them. I'm over, man, this dude won't do what I said, blah, 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 blah. And he's just like, oh, he's off the team. He's out of here. He's our best offensive guard. He's a dude. I'm like, no, I don't mean he goes, no, hell with him. Kick him off. Go out there, kick him off the team. I'm like, whoa. He took me to the side and said, let me tell you something. As the head coach, if you come at me like that and it's that big of a deal, you make me have to do something. You make me have to have a reaction. And I will. Or you can come tell me later and say, man, I couldn't get him to do nothing, whatever. I'll go deal with him later. But you don't do that. And then I would also tell you, don't be careful burning bridges. I've left some jobs because I didn't agree with it. Never told anybody. Jobs are easy to find as a coach. You will get hired quick if you're loyal and you don't talk back. I will tell you this, when I go into a new job, I will interview everybody on staff. I'll give every one of them a chance to have a job. If one bad word is said about the previous coach, I ain't hiring you. Yeah. You don't have to say anything good about him. You don't have to talk. If I ask you a specific question about practice schedule or something, you can answer honestly. But if you want to just sit there and badmouth the dude before me or whatever, you're going to do the same thing to me eventually. So loyalty is everything in this business. So definitely don't let it eat at you. Whoever asked the question, go behind closed doors. If that coach won't give you the answer, that coach won't work with you, that coach won't listen, hey, guess what, man? Say, all right, appreciate it. I'm going to take my whistle somewhere else. Yep. And then was Hammer ever able to type his question on there?
Yeah, he wrote it.
Okay, cool. He sent it to me in text. Okay.
Yeah, it said at what point
are you trying to say?
Loose?
He couldn't get it typed in, so he's like, man, ask this question for me.
So what are you trying to say? You don't know how to type? Man, that's messed up. Let me call him out.
Hey, am I muted?
Mr. Sloppy right there. No, you're good, Bill. You guys see the question?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I don't know if we want to hear you, Bill.
I know, right? I want to say something on that too, just because I have a lot of experience in this. When I went to Marine Corps Leadership School, the first thing that we were taught was you can lose a battle, but you don't lose the troops, don't lose your team. And then the lesson taught there was, this is leadership, and I'm not really under debate for who don't agree. Some do it, some don't. But as a head coach, you better never undress your coaches in front of kids and coaches, because if you do that shit, you take away their power. You take away their power from the kids, and you take away their power from the program. Especially if, I'm not saying that it's okay to do it from a dude that don't have a big role, but you do that to a big role guy. I mean, me and Matt been on both sides of it together, and always did it professionally behind closed doors, and it wasn't fun, but we knew if it happened out there on the field, we were going to lose the team. And you got to be careful of undressing people in front of kids. It's just not professional, and you'll take away their power in your program, and you won't have a coach. He'll be there physically, but he won't be there mentally. And
a little trick to that too, Bill and I have used this. If there's a time that your guys, like you're just not getting through the kids, something's going on, they love their position coach. So let him know before practice. Hey, all right, listen, today I'm just going to rip your ass. Just keep saying, I'll fix it, coach. I'll fix it. I'm just going to rip your ass. And you're like, man, these guys, I know these guys are trying, but you're teaching it wrong. We won't do this. And just read, yes, sir, I'll fix it. Yes. Knowing, and it never fails. Lancaster did that to me one time. The only problem is he didn't tell me beforehand. He told me after the fact. And I learned an important lesson. Just tell those guys, hey, here's what's going to happen. And my players went to battle for me. It's like, coach, man, that's what you've been telling us all along. We know we've been screwing it up, man. We got this. We got your back, coach. We got your back. Because sometimes the head coach has to be the bad guy role. And so that's a good little trick. But just to give you the advice of let your assistant coach know before the fact. Sometimes it turns ugly.
Something I started doing, and I love it. I can't remember who I stole it from, but obviously as a head coach, like, you're going to have situations where there's a position that's just not getting it done, especially in practice. And so a way to kind of still keep your assistant coach to have that authority, but to let them know, hey, there's something wrong and we got to get it fixed, is tell that coach in front of everybody, hey, coach, are they living up to your expectations? Are they meeting your standards? And then it puts it all back on them. Like, it's a team standard, but I'm telling you, coach, they're not getting it done. Are they meeting your standard right now, coach? And then that allows them to get on their players. They don't lose that authority, and the problem gets fixed. And I think it's a great way to, because you're going to have to. You're going to have to, in the midst, sometimes you can't wait and have it go wrong the entire practice and wait for you guys to go one-on-one to correct it. Then you miss an entire day of doing it the wrong way. So there's a way that you can do it in the midst, in the middle practice, in a game. Coach, hey, is that up to your standards, coach? And let them handle it. Let them get it fixed, and then we can kind of move on.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good stuff right there. That's definitely good. That question that Hammer put in there. So it was basically, at what point do you cut a man loose that is counter to your culture? And when is it too late to help or change them, knowing that when you cut them loose, you're signing their death certificate?
That's a tough one. And there comes points where you do have to cut them loose. Coach Lancaster, and I keep referring back to him because I learned a lot from him, but he used to say, we can lose just as easy with this guy as we can win without him. And I was always like, well, I thought it was win just as easy with him as we can lose it. He goes, no, because if we keep him out here and keep letting him do what he's doing, we're going to end up losing when it's on the line. So, I don't think there's an exact answer, Hammer. I think that's got to be a feel. You got to know the kid, and it's give them chance. I'm the king of second chances, third chances, fourth chances, whatever. But at the point where it won't change, you got to take care of the program first. It kind of goes back, and then Hammer saying, knowing when you cut the kid loose, that's his last chance. His last chance is football. Well, you've tried to tell him that. You've tried to tell him. You've preached to him, hey, if you don't have football here, what are you going to do? You're going to be in jail. You're going to be dead. We've all had those kids. But I will tell you this as a coach, and I do our little classroom management, actually professional development for our teachers, and I tell them how to be a coach in the classroom. And you always use the story of the guy walking down the beach, grabbing the seashells, throwing them back in the ocean. It's all these seashells have washed up on the shore. He's throwing them in. Somebody comes down the shore and says, man, what are you doing? He goes, man, I'm saving these seashells. And he goes, he's starfish. So I'm saving these starfish. And the guy looks around and sees all, he goes, man, look at all of them. You're not going to save all of them. He goes, nah, but I saved that one. Every one you can save is one you can put in your belt. If you hang your whole career on the one you couldn't save, you'll burn out. This business is too hard. It goes too fast. Do everything you can to save them all. Walk down the beach, throw them back in the water. But understand that you're not going to get to all of them. And at some point, you may have to cut one loose. And it's a hard thing because you love them all. And you know dang good and well. And don't be afraid to let them come back the next year. Don't be afraid to let them come back. I'll tell you this, working at Wilmer Hutchins, I worked in all black school in South Dallas. It was the neighborhood. It was a part of Oak Cliff, but it was a neighborhood all the rappers wrote the songs about. I mean, it was the roughest area there was down there. And I got to work for Mike Robinson, and he had a policy in practice. It was, hey, here's the deal. He goes, if a kid's just not doing it, he's just driving you crazy. He's screwing up your drills. He won't act right. We've all had that kid. Send him to me. He would talk to him, and he'd send him back to you. If it didn't fix, you sent him to again, and he sent him home. His rule was this, and the kids knew. Every time you get sent home from practice, you miss a quarter that week. Guess what? They come back the next day. You don't talk about yesterday. You don't talk about what you were doing wrong, why you were acting like an idiot, what was going on. You just go. We knew for a fact, I had a kid, Walter, he was a 6'4" corner that was a dude, went to Kansas State, got kicked out within a month. But we knew we were never going to have him until the second half. He was getting kicked out at least 2 practices a week. But what Robinson was doing was saving these kids' lives because they knew they could come back. And you're going to have those kids that sometimes, man, you have that day. You don't know why, but they're having a terrible day. You don't know what's going on at their house. They're having a terrible day. But if you got that, instead of letting them run practice, letting them ruin everybody else, letting them make your coach so dang mad he's about to kill the kid. If you have that policy, and it's just a good little easy policy to get practice back right and then still give them another chance without having to cut them completely loose.
For sure. Does anybody else want to touch on that question?
No, I think Heno hit it right on the head. I mean, like I know Nick Saban, he was talking about a kid he had at LSU, and I don't know who it was, but he got in trouble, like drunk driving or something like that, maybe like freshman, sophomore year, and had a whole bunch of people telling him that the kid should get kicked off and he shouldn't be part of LSU anymore. And then, obviously Nick Saban kept him and groomed him. Kid ends up going to the NFL, generational money, donating to families, changing other families' lives. And he's like, if I had listened to everybody that was telling me that kid should be kicked off because he made one mistake, then we would have missed up on, changing a ton of people's lives. So I always kind of keep that in mind, anytime I have any kind of issues with that, and giving kids second chances and trying to develop them. Again, we thought this whole thing is about culture and leadership and developing kids. Part of that is like, they're going to mess up. They're 14 to 16 to 18. I mean, they're going to mess up. So I think it's part of our job is to continue to keep helping and continue that rehabilitation process. And I don't think you ever give up. Like Heno said, yeah, maybe the kid is not ready to play this year, but next year when you come back, hey, let's go. Let's try it again. So I think he killed it.
Blue, when he talked about that story this year at LSU, he was talking about too our boy Mac Jones when Mac his freshman year got a DUI.
That's right.
He was talking about Mac, and he was like, they're like, you should have got rid of him. Well, I could have told you a long time ago that kid was probably one of those competitive damn kids we've ever had. All he needed was a shot, and he proved it. And stuck around. Now he's gonna have generational money pretty quick.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's doing all right.
That's for sure. Guys, we got we'll end on this question because another one came in. But the question was, what qualities do you look for in your boss, the AD? So how do you get the administration to align with your vision to become one program? How do you get them to buy into you? And how do you handle the differences with admin that may be against the culture that you have established?
I don't know if you caught my speech the other day, but you could go back to it. I specifically talked about a lot of that, having the five things you got to have to build a program. You got to have good coaches, you got to have good players, you got to have good parents that will support you. You got to have an administration that will support you and a community. If you got that, you can go fight. If any one of them sticking out, it ain't going to work. So I think with your question, I don't interview for a job. I tell them, if you called me, you must already want me. I'm going to interview you. And I'm definitely going to control the interview. You can ask me any question you want in the first question, and I'm going to talk for the next hour and a half and tell you how I'm going to run the program. And then I'm going to start asking you questions, and you're going to know real quick. Now, if this kind of sounds like they brought in a different administration than one you're hired, because here's the deal. Don't take a job. Get in where you fit in. Don't take a job where the administration's goals, values, and future vision for the program doesn't match up with yours, because it will never work. You're not going to change them. Now, you can get in and develop. If they're a little bit like open-minded sponge a little bit, you can change them. You can get in there and you got to coach them. That's coaching your administration. People, and I'll say it straight in my meeting. When I interview, I will tell them, it is just as much my job to coach you, Mr. Superintendent, as it is to coach my quarterback. I'm going to teach you how to be a great football superintendent, if they don't already know. And you let them know. They kind of laugh, and I'm not kidding. I mean, I'm going to coach them just as much. I know Bill and I talked today. Bill's probably turning down a job because exact same thing. I told him he's doing the right thing. If they don't have the same vision you got, then don't take the job first place. But if you get one in there, and for some reason, I'll say you said AD, so it looks like you're having problems with your AD, and I'm a big believer in chain of command. So you need to go straight to your AD and lay it out to him. Here's my vision. Here's what we got to do. Blah blah blah. If he's not willing, he won't listen. Whatever. Then you take it to the next level. You go to your superintendent. Then you go to your school board. You go and order up the ladder. At the end of the day, don't stay somewhere unhappy. There's too many damn jobs out there. If they're not going to do it the way you feel like you should do it. Best thing that ever happened to me, guys, and I don't know how many guys on this phone or this call here have been fired. Best thing that ever happened to me is got my ass fired. I know AI has been fired. We've talked about it. Bill's been fired. It's what, Blue, you ever been fired? Blue's on his first head coaching job. He got fired.
Yeah, give me some time. Give me some time.
Okay. Don't worry. It only stings for a minute.
Yeah. Hey, I'm still pissed.
But the great thing about it is once you get fired, you realize you get hired again real quick. And now all of a sudden it's like, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to take care of these kids. I'm going to do what I know is right. And I'm going to do it my damn way. So when you fire me, I would much rather get fired doing it my way than doing it your way. At the end of the day, if they want to fire your ass, they're going to fire you anyway.
Mm-hmm. Hallelujah, brother.
I was vindictive, Blue. I was vindictive. I took all that gear, I put it in a trash can with some lighter fluid. I burnt that shit. I was
Believe that
pissed.
100%.
I was pissed, right? Shocking, huh? Shocking.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I was
you know,
gonna,
and honestly,
I was
I'm
gonna send a
kinda big
video
on
too. I was gonna put it on YouTube or some shit, and my wife wouldn't let me.
Good idea, Jamie. Good for Jamie.
Yeah, and obviously I know you guys all know, I started this program, but athletics was here before, I got here. So, I mean, they had they had everything except for baseball and us and football. And so there was an AD in place, and I had my ideals on what I wanted this program to be. And just like Heno said, it's setting expectations, and keeping that line of communication open. And sometimes, it sounds like, again, in this situation, maybe they're not the ones that are being proactive and communicating. Then you have to do it. You have to be the one to kind of go in and say, like, this is what I want to do. And ultimately, if the minds don't meet, like Heno said, man, I see job postings all over the place. We got job posting in Arizona where you can go somewhere. So yeah, and staying somewhere that you're not comfortable, staying somewhere where you can't, build your program the way you want to, it does nothing but hurt your resume, because it's going to end up with you being unsuccessful, and then your options start to limit yourself.
It's a valid point. Fellas, this was, as I knew, this was tremendous, man. Just so much gems were dropped tonight, man. And I got a bunch of notes here. This is definitely one that you're gonna have to watch back for sure. Obviously, thank you to you guys for spending as much time with us and sharing all that knowledge with us. And thank you to all the coaches in here. What I usually do at the end, if you guys, care to share your contact information in case anybody did want to follow up or had any questions, by all means, please do it. If you want to type it in there, if you want to just verbalize it, either way, it's all good.
Yeah, mine's Coach Hennessy at Gmail. I'll put it on there though for you. You can hit me on Twitter too. That's how everybody's watching this. So we're all on there too. We're easy to find.
There you go.
Yeah, Hammer. My dog is even getting on it.
He was in the other talk too.
Yeah, he loves football.
For sure.
Does he have a choice?
Since Bill left, I had to hire another dog.
Fellas, awesome, man. Awesome stuff. Awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Justin, hosting this, man. It's freaking awesome. And and obviously, I missed this, with the USA crew. We didn't get that, so I'm glad to get that started back up. I can
hurry up and get that going again, AI.
Yeah, for sure.
Get ready. That's all I need to say.
Get COVID over with.
Yeah.
Get ready. Hey, I told Bill this today, and Bill laughed, and you fucking take this to the fucking bank. It's going to take more than a runny nose and a cough to stop me. I'll tell you now. There's a different level of energy now. I'll tell you that.
Yes. Can't wait.
So regional season's about ready to kick off. We almost have all of them contracted and done. So let's put it that way. I'm already working on summer. We're getting ready for our combine. This first time ever doing a national selection combine, 1-day event at the Star to kick it back. If I told you how many kids are already signed up, you might shit yourself. It's over 450. Get ready. Just get ready. So I need to say, and you better lace up your shoes.
Oh yeah.
Because this old guy's got a lot of energy. Get ready. Get ready.
Been doing nothing but sit in the basement drinking Red Bull and coffee. Shit, he's ready to roll.
I quit Red Bull. I quit Red Bull.
Thank God.
Yeah, amen. Woo!
Get ready. Hey, now I'm just nasty. I don't have energy. I'm just nasty.
Oh shit.
Guys, this was awesome, man. It was a pleasure. Once again, I just can't thank you guys enough for spending time and just way to end off this Thursday lineup, man. We had a bunch of good clinic talks today, and to end on something like this, and as I always say, man, the culture talks, the leadership outside the X's and O's for me, man, is just the best. So I can't thank you guys enough for that.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks all you dudes who are on there.
Yes,
Take care, guys.
Take care, guys. Have a great night.
Hey,
Yes, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Love you all.
Bye,
Take it
guys.
easy.
Word. Later, guys.